Hello, this is John D. Callahan. I have had atrial fibrillation, or AFib, for approximately 40 years, from my mid-20s to now my mid-60s, although I look much, much younger. However, the disease has progressed very slowly. In fact, I am in sinus rhythm over 99% of the time. In other words, I have a minimal AF burden. I have a normal heart with normal size atria. I have never needed medical intervention to terminate an episode. My episodes typically last half a day, and I've had episodes as little as an hour, and I typically have a handful a year. In other words, I'm in sinus rhythm, or again, I'm in sinus rhythm over 99% of the time. Again, and I have had atrial fibrillation over 40 years. Over the past few years, I have written an eBook describing how I have done this, and I am here shamelessly to promote it. In an ebook, I can do much more than a video. I have numerous links to internet sites, numerous links to YouTube videos, in addition to my own medical records, diagrams, illustrations, and pictures. The book is called Beating Atrial Fibrillation Naturally, 40 Years, and it's available at numerous outlets. It'll cost you $3.50. It'll be one of the best $3.50 you ever spent. This is the actual book, and this is the beginning of the book. It's a nice picture of my daughter. The chapters, this is the introduction. And here are my own medical records spanning decades, showing me an atrial fibrillation and sinus rhythm, showing my echocardiograms spanning decades. Again, I have a normal heart. First chapter is on the heart and knowing what's going on. Very important to understand the heart and atrial fibrillation and what's going on with your own specific heart. Make sure you're under the care of a cardiologist. Study your own records, discuss your issue, your atrial fibrillation issues with your cardiologist. The medical profession has been invaluable in helping me to overcome atrial fibrillation. Make sure, once again, you are under the care of a cardiologist and your heart has been studied. This is a diagram of various stages of atrial fibrillation. This is a table of various stages of atrial fibrillation. This is a table about intervention in atrial fibrillation. Again, my book is on natural intervention and how I have overcome atrial fibrillation and over the past 40 years and remaining in sinus rhythm over 99% of the time. There's numerous links. This is about monitoring your own heart. And now, the next chapter is rhythm and stress. As you put stress on the heart, you're going to cause the probability of atrial fibrillation to increase, just as if you put stress in a bone, you'll cause the probability of the bone breaking to increase. This is one of my own medical records showing how my heart was unstable for weeks, but I was able to remain out of atrial fibrillation. These two tables are about atrial fibrillation and sinus rhythm and the various stages of the two and transitioning between one and the other. This chapter 3, is on physical strategies for overcoming atrial fibrillation. This is me playing basketball in high school. I was quite good, but we won't belabor that point. Moving on, again, this is discussing physical aspects of overcoming atrial fibrillation, numerous links, causes of atrial fibrillation, body position, and atrial fibrillation. Next chapter is on mental strategies for overcoming atrial fibrillation. Very important to be positive. This is a link to blue zones and Loma Linda specifically. I talk here about not getting overconfident, not panicking, etc. Again, these are mental strategies, thinking of your atrial fibrillation has a disease, just as you might have diabetes or you might have a bad cold. And here's my cat. It's a good idea to be happy and serene like my cat Cleo, laying in my lap. Next chapter is on food. Food is very important. There's numerous links, and this is what I have found and what I have eaten regarding food and the benefits of food and bad food. So I have numerous links again, and the synergism of food not only with atrial fibrillation, general health, but other diseases. I have this is my food table: what's good, what's bad, what's neutral, suggestions on how to eat, Mediterranean diet. You can even have some beer once in a while, other beverages, cake sometimes, and so forth. Now this chapter is on prescription. I like the term or acronym RX, prescription and non-RX supplements. So I talk about supplements that are not prescription and also prescription drugs. Again, I have controlled my atrial fibrillation naturally, other than a few prescription drugs used primarily during episodes. So this is discussing drugs and non-prescription supplements. Melatonin is helpful. This is a link to an article about taurine and arginine. Taurine, arginine, calcium, and magnesium and zinc are helpful, and I discuss other drugs and supplements, non-prescription supplements. The next chapter are some specifics about eating. This is breakfast, what I eat for breakfast, what you can eat for breakfast, when to eat breakfast, etc. So I'm discussing some specifics about eating and breakfast. Next chapter, similarly, talk about dinner, what I eat, what have I found to be helpful. I refer back to my food chapter and my food table. Next chapter is on getting out of atrial fibrillation. It's very important to get out of atrial fibrillation as soon as you can. So this is how I deal with getting out of atrial fibrillation. Just as if you had a bad cold, you should stay home from work, rest, etc. And so I talk about strategies for getting out of atrial fibrillation. And these are two tables which specifically talk and give doses about the prescription drugs and non-prescription supplements, again with doses, what I take during atrial fibrillation episodes and how I get out of atrial fibrillation. Next chapter is about the night. The night is a dangerous time, so this is how I handle the night and suggestions for making sure you don't go into atrial fibrillation during the night. Again, I have numerous links here and pictures. Last chapter is on medical intervention. Again, the book is on non-medical intervention, natural intervention, but I have a chapter on medical intervention discussing ablation, radiofrequency, and catheter, and also mini mazes and hybrid conversion surgeries, and also the Cox-Maze 4 procedure or surgery, and I have numerous links. So again, this is John D. Callahan. I have had atrial fibrillation for approximately 40 years, and I have been able to control it. I'm in sinus rhythm over 99% of the time. The last few years, I have written a book describing how I have been successful in overcoming atrial fibrillation. The book is called Beating Atrial Fibrillation Naturally, 40 Years. It's an ebook. I'm here shamelessly promoting it. I can do much more in an ebook than I can in a video. There are numerous links to the internet, to YouTube video. There's my medical records, numerous pictures, and diagrams and illustrations. The book will cost you about $3.50, but it'll be one of the best $3.50 you ever spent. Thank you. Please go out and get my book.